You both make that important point, and I have to say I was speaking with a number of diplomats in the region who, by the way, said they were very excited about this conversation, given your experience and expertise, both of you. And one big question that's being discussed, of course, is once we get past stage one, what does the ideal endgame look like? Let's say even 5 years from now. Secretary Clinton, you first.
Well, I think we have to acknowledge, Norah, that as both Condi and I have said, we have to navigate this first phase successfully. And that's not self-evident. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of coordination. And I agree that having U.S. troops and civilian personnel involved in helping to ensure that the ceasefire takes place, that it holds, that if there is some kind of outbreak somewhere, that it can be quickly put down. Because, you know, both Condi and I have experience that is relevant to this. I negotiated a ceasefire 13 years ago, November of 2012. And, you know, it took a lot of shuttle diplomacy, as we like to say. It held for a while, but, you know, there is a lot of potential challenges to making sure that this one holds in order to get to that next phase. And it's going to require an enormous amount of planning. And I think the outline that has been shared with the 20 points provides a roadmap as to who needs to be at the table, who will be providing the security, who will be representing the Palestinians, what kind of technical expertise can Palestinians bring to the table about reconstruction? How do we make sure that Israel is, you know, assured at every step that their security is going to be maintained? So this is going to require the same level, if not greater, intensity that got us to the ceasefire in the first place. I mean, there were so many efforts over the last 2 years, as we all recall, to try to get to a lasting ceasefire, to get the hostages home. Now we've got to make sure the ceasefire holds, that Hamas delivers the hostages, and that then we have a process that people will think is credible to begin going down these 20 points to figure out how we're going to work together with Arab allies and others to implement them.
And Secretary Rice, go ahead, yes.
No, I was just going to add, I do think this time, and here I think that the Trump administration is to be congratulated on the way that they put this together. There are a number now of important parties who have a stake in this. One of the difficult elements of doing peace in the Middle East is trying to get all the parties who have a stake in it to really be on the same page. And I will say the Qatari bear a lot of should get a lot of praise for pulling this together. But you also see that some of the Gulf Arabs have been involved in this, and their interest is in a long-term Middle East, or a better long-term in the Middle East, where they may be even able to normalize relations with Israel, as the UAE and others have, and as I think Saudi Arabia would like to. I also noticed that, you know, the Egyptians are always at the table, but somehow the Turks were involved in this. So this is a broader coalition of states that have an interest and have a lot at stake here. It is also a time when, frankly, every Arab army, going all the way back to 48 until now, there are no really Arab army threats to Israel any longer. And what Israel did in disabling Hezbollah, really, Iran is not the factor that it might have been when Hillary and I were doing this. And so the conditions look somewhat better to be able to move forward. The one piece that I'm most concerned about is how do you get from a kind of transitional authority of some kind, a truly representative Palestinian authority. The Palestinian Authority, which controls the West Bank, lost control of Gaza after 2006. has not really been reformed in a long time, and it needs reform. It needs younger blood. I have a lot of respect for President Abbas, but it is really time to move on to a new generation of leadership in the Palestinian Authority, perhaps to bring some of that technical expertise from Palestinians who have been abroad, because ultimately the Palestinian people have to own this solution. And we're a long way from that. But for right now, right at this moment, the Trump administration deserves a lot of credit for the broad-based support that this 20-point plan has. It's
an excellent point. And on that...
And Norah, if I could just add... Yeah, if I could just add, because I think it's important to put the context around this, as Condi did, with the dismantling of Hezbollah, with the successful attacks on Iran, and with a new regime in Syria that is looking for some kind of accommodation with Israel, this set of conditions has never existed in recent times. And so shame on us if we don't take advantage of it. And also, it should encourage the regional powers to see it as an opening that we've never had before. So the stars are aligned in a way that has not been available. And I think the Israeli government, the Netanyahu government, needs to seize this moment and make some of its own reforms. We have to build a new transitional authority for the Palestinians, but the Israeli government also has to make some hard decisions in order to take advantage of this, change in circumstances.